Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, did you know there's a skill many men never learn that ends up seriously limiting your professional success and satisfaction in your love and sex life? I put together a free guide to explain this unknown skill and give you exactly what you need to use it today. Get it by heading over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com or text the word ALIVE, A-L-I-V-E, to 44144. That's 44144. You'll also get access to Man Alive outtakes, raw footage, and bonus videos you can only get there. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm excited today to talk about men's health and vitality and adventure with Anthony Treyes. Anthony, welcome.
Hey, Shayna, it's exciting to be here with you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here because you're living a pretty incredible life, adventurous and out of the box. And I really want to give men a sense of what's possible and how you can, redefine yourself after struggles or after living a life that's more conventional, and also not paint this rosy rainbow picture, right? That it happens immediately and, and that you did this right away. So I'm excited to get into what you're doing now and the struggles, and what you faced along the way.
Yes.
And I want to give you a quick intro before we dive in.
Okay.
So Anthony is an Iraq war veteran and is on a mission to radically change men's mental health. His mission in Iraq was to provide personal security for U.S. generals and government officials. And now his mission is to inspire men to reclaim their health, their sense of adventure, and purpose. Upon his return home, Anthony struggled with PTSD, anxiety, and depression, and desperately wanted to improve his condition and set out to rebuild his own health and mental well-being. And with 7 years of experience, research, study, and education, he developed the STRONG method, a proven step-by-step process his clients use to eliminate their anxiety and to regain control over their health and mental well-being to become strong men. So first of all, I just want to say kudos to you and thank you for doing your own work, and then also for then committing to helping other men do the same. I'm a strong believer in there's just too many men out there suffering alone. So thank you for being a support and a guide.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for what you do as well. And it's great to be getting a more positive, uplifting message for men. I love the word you used in the intro here, redefining. And that's such an awesome word because we can redefine our life at any time. Yeah. And I love that word.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So give us a picture of now, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of what it took and what you went through. But, right now you are in Colombia and you don't have a constant home or place that you stay. So give a sense of the adventure that you're living in this moment.
Yeah, right now I'm in Bogota, Colombia, and I am living my dreams. I've always wanted to travel the world. I've been to 13 countries as of today, and right now I run my business as I'm traveling the world. And right now I'm in Bogota. I'm actually going to be here for a week. Then I'm heading out to Cartagena for a week. Then I'm heading to Medellin, and then I'm actually taking a sidebar trip to Venice, Italy. And, this is something that has been a dream of mine. And like you mentioned, we could go back to the nitty gritty because this didn't just happen for me overnight. How I am right now today is not who I was 8 years ago. And so I'm just living my dream of this adventurous lifestyle. And it's not about being kind of this low budget traveler. I am extravagant. I love to do great and exciting things and be adventurous and living out that adventurous side in me.
Amazing. Okay, right. So you're not living the 20-year-old backpacker dream. You're living the 40
No.
something year old. I want to have adventures and
Yes.
do this
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I have stayed in hostels before. I have stayed in dormitories, and those things are great. But
Yes.
I definitely have done that before, and wouldn't mind if I have to stay a day or two doing something like that. But it gets me to meet amazing people along the way, and
Yep.
it's just been great. So
Good. Okay, good. So you're traveling, and when I asked you before how long you were going to travel, you said forever. There's no unless until something else happens, right?
yeah, there's no return date. There is no return date. My family back home in California, my parents, I'm not married, have any kids or anything. All of them are back in the States, and they know this is me. I have no return date. There's no, um, I'm not going back to the States until until I need to, or until an event happens and stuff. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
It's exciting, really exciting. And yeah, I'm like, okay, there's a part of me that wishes I was out there. And we talked about this before we started too,
Yeah.
right? How to take my son. I think there are some amazing journeys. And so maybe a little later we'll talk too about men who do have kids and who are, bound in certain ways and
Yeah.
how they can start having some of this, even if it's not, I'm going out there forever, but I'm going to go out there for a month or for the summer
Mm,
or wherever
absolutely.
that may be. So, okay. So tell us a little bit about your history and, how you got to this place. Cause there's been a lot of grit, I would say, along the way.
Yeah, so I was in the Oregon Army National Guard in 2009, and we got called up for deployment, which started in 2009. And I came back. My job in Iraq was to provide personal security for generals, government officials, and we even provided personal security for the Vice President of the United States, Joe
Wow.
Biden at the time.
Wow.
And so it was a zero air, high intensity mission. It was intense, where we'd have to, the people that we were providing security from, the enemy would have wanted nothing more than to get a hold of them. And so our mission was very secretive, and their location was secretive, and so we had to be able to provide this security when they were in Baghdad, Iraq, and in the
Wow.
vicinity of Baghdad. So there was a lot of intensity to it. And there you feel normal, you feel okay, you're doing your job. It's high intensity, and it's everyday situations, or bases getting mortared. I'm jumping into bunkers, and all these several different things, and you're just trying to survive.
Wow.
And then you get to a point where hey, it's time for us to go back home, and you're excited. And then you get back home, and there's that reintegration period. The unfortunate thing for me, and that happened to me, is 2 months before coming back home, I then, at the time, received a modern day, um, a modern day Dear John letter through email from my then wife, telling me she wanted a divorce upon my
Oh
return
my
home.
God.
So my
Wow.
return
So you're
home,
over there. And did you even know that you were coming back at that time or it's
yes, it was approximately 2 months before coming back home. And the interesting thing is, the enemy would normally try to send mortars over on our base during nighttime, when we owned the night because of the equipment that we had, but they would still try and attempt and do their best to try to do what they can to us.
wow.
And so they would do that at night. Well, while we were preparing to return home, still in still in Baghdad, Iraq, the mortar went off, and right above my head. Now, not right above my head, but like up in the air, but above my head. And there was a system that would attempt to shoot out these mortars, and oftentimes they were successful, other times not. And it was shot right above my head, and it just starts literally sprinkling these metal fragments
Oh my
all
God.
over me.
Wow.
And one hits my shoulder, and it goes down to the floor. And I look at it. I go down, I bend down, and I pick it up. And I look at this metal shrapnel, this piece of metal. And it was just kind of like this reminder to me that, Anthony, you're not home yet.
Wow.
You're not safe. And I was upset because of this information, this email I received from
Yeah.
Mother Life, and I'm like, I wish I would have kept this thing, to be honest with you, but I ended up chucking it, I ended up throwing it, and I was so mad and frustrated because it was right. It was like, Anthony, do not let your guard down. You are not home yet.
Mm-hmm.
You still have a job to do. Keep stay in the fight. Stay in the fight.
Wow.
And so coming back home, I returned to an empty house. And then shortly after, I began to wake up in the middle of the night. I wouldn't know where I was at.
Mm.
I'd wake up just sweating. I'd just started, all these things started happening. I'd drive under an underpass and my heart would just start racing without even me thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it was because in Iraq we would drive under overpasses and we'd have to do these maneuvers in order to prevent from being them lobbing things over
Attacked.
into our
Yeah.
vehicles.
Yeah.
And then if I saw there was an incident where I went to a store to go buy some clothes and I come out and the parking lot was fairly empty, but right in the middle of the parking stall next to my truck
Mm-hmm.
was this black garbage bag.
Mm.
And it took me right back to Iraq. And I like went into this other mode where I ducked down. I'm looking all around. I'm starting to look on rooftops. I'm trying to look at all these everywhere behind vehicles. And my heart's just racing. And I'm thinking many things. First off, I'm like, why is there this black garbage bag right next to my truck? It's so odd to even for that to be there. It's almost somewhat not necessarily in the middle of the day, but like in the middle of the afternoon. And I go into like high alert and I'm just there and I'm looking around and there's nobody around. It was a weird situation. And all of a sudden I came to, and I was like, I was pissed. I was mad. And I said, I used some language and I said, if something's going to happen, something's going to happen. I got into my truck. I turned it on and I just sped out of there. I was so mad because I was thinking, is somebody messing with me? Is somebody like playing a game with me? I didn't know what was going on. But for me to have this reaction to this black garbage bag was like, I knew something was going on. Everything else that was happening with me and this anxiety, this not being able to sleep and these nightmares when I did and all these things, having to run out of my house because I'd feel claustrophobic. Even in my own 2,200 square foot home, I literally would have to run outside my house because I felt like everything was just caving in.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine. I mean, I have tears in my eyes and I can't even imagine what it's like, to be over there in a war zone and fighting and constantly not safe. And then also to have your wife ask for a divorce and then come home to an empty house. I mean, no wonder it felt like everything was caving in, right? It was.
Yeah. And so for me, I eventually had to I realized that I needed help.
Yeah.
And I did. I went to the VA, the Veterans Administration, to get some help. And the unfortunate thing is, and I understand in some aspects why they do this, but they immediately wanted to put me on medication.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I just didn't want to go that route. And I wanted to try different things. And of course, after a period of time, I wasn't improving. I was starting to see a therapist and get some help. And I gave in to starting to take medication. But as I was concerned, I did end up getting these negative side effects. And the unfortunate thing is you get on one medication to take care of another, or to take care of one thing, and then you need another medication to take care of the side effects from that thing. And then before you know it, you're on multiple medications. And I immediately took myself off for those, which was the wrong thing to do because these types of medications, you have to wean yourself off of them. And so, so for me, it wasn't the best thing, but so anyhow, long story short, it was something I knew I continued to get help from. But after many years, it was like 6 years of talk therapy, I'd go get some help. And then part of me was like, okay, let me go on my own and take care of myself. But eventually I I'd start having issues again and just anxiety and depression. So I go back. And so I did that pretty much for 6 years off and on.
Wow.
And for me, I had always been very interested in the brain and in the human brain. And so very fascinated with it.
Yeah.
Well, I came across Dr. Daniel Amen, who conducts these SPECT scans for the brain. And basically what it does is it measures the cerebral blood flow, and it can detect what areas of your brain are very active. So for me, I just, I had the opportunity to get this done, and it was more of kind of curiosity. It was like, these were going to be pictures of my own brain, how it's working, and really kind of get a baseline of what's going on. And I was still struggling with anxiety and depression during this time. And I went and I had these scans done of my brain.
Wow.
And I can't tell you how incredible it was to get these scans. They do one at rest and then one during concentration. And then you get this whole write-up as far as what's going on. And I remember the doctor. Yeah, I remember the doctor calling me in, and he had me sit on this couch, and right before me was this table. And there on the top of the table were my scans. Like that was me. That was my brain. And he began to explain that I had these very active areas of my brain. And there he had these circles, these white circles, and said, like, there's your indication of like your PTSD, and there's your obsessive compulsive, and there's your hyper vigilant. And to me, it was like I finally I exhaled. And it was this huge relief that, because for several years, I'm very much into personal development. I'm pretty much into mental performance. I'm very much into these things, and all the things that I tried just weren't giving me the relief. And there before me, and going back a little bit, that made me feel bad, because
right.
I'm like, I was trying to do all these things to improve my life, and nothing was really giving me that true relief.
Yeah.
And so there before me was the answer. There before me was like, Anthony, there's nothing wrong with you morally. You're not a bad person.
Like this is actually happening. This is the map of what's happening in your brain chemically and biologically. And so therefore you could let yourself off the hook, it sounds like, in a certain way.
Yeah. As far as like being able to, explain what has been going on, and to know that it's been my brain that has kept me from really being able to focus, and having these active areas that didn't allow my mind to shut down.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, wow. And that's really kind of the foundation of my coaching practice. I don't necessarily encourage everyone to get a brain scan, but if someone has been struggling with anxiety and mild depression and these sorts of things, and or if maybe you've had some hard times or a struggle in improving their life, it is it is a route that I would encourage if someone is able to do it financially to do it.
So I mean, you've been through probably, I would say, right, some of the most difficult situations anyone could face in their life. And that was how many years ago? 8 years ago or so?
Yes, 2010, I returned back from my department.
And now you're where you are. And,
yes.
How do you walk a man through, like you said, maybe the first step is to get brain scans, or maybe not, but how do you walk him from that place of his own struggle and challenge into, it might not look like your, adventurous life, but his own sense of vitality and power and, joy, fulfillment, adventure. How do you get someone there?
Yeah, it goes back to that word again, that redefining, right? I think no matter how small the flame is inside of a man, he desires to be great. Deep inside, he has the desire to be the best that he can, no matter how small that flame might be. And oftentimes we just need to hear that message that you can be great, that you have this potential that is deep within you. If I can go back just a tiny bit to explain kind of maybe this little part here, where I remember I had this job where I was delivering medical equipment. And This time I would have, during this time, I'd have to carry a pager. This was back in the day. And I'd get a message. If I got a message, I obviously would have to answer it. And for 1 week, um, I could be called up at any time during that whole week. Even if I just finished off my shift, I'd have to answer that. And even if I got an answer or call at 4 o'clock in the morning and finished at 7 and work started at 8, I would have to do that for a whole week.
Yeah.
Well, one day I get this message and I have to go and deliver a hospital bed and this oxygen. And I'm in Bend, Oregon. It's the middle of winter, and it's snow and ice outside, and it's 2:30 in the morning. And I get dressed. I'm walking to my truck, stepping on this ice and this snow. And I get to my door. I put in my key, and I have to dislodge my door to get it open. I get into the truck. And there it's just like jumping into an ice box, right? And it's this diesel truck, so I have to wait for the bulb to go off and start it up. And I wake, it's such a loud noise, you wake half of the neighborhood up just from that, right? And there, as the truck was warming up, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, Anthony, this is not what you were meant to do with your life. This is not. And it's like, I know, and I think for many men, and it's like for my clients too, where they can relate to that. Like one day they're on their way to work.
That's
Yep. And it's like, this was not what I was meant to do with my life. And it's like, I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. I want to be more engaged. And it's just like, this is just sapping me of my energy.
Yeah.
And that's
right? So many men and women too have those moments.
Yes.
And then what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What happened for you after that moment?
That's where kind of things started changing, even though for me, I wanted to redefine my life. And it didn't happen overnight. This was actually before my deployment. So after my deployment, or when I was like, man, Anthony, you know this stuff. I was into this personal development stuff. I was into meditation and visualization and subconscious mind. I was all into this stuff, but I wasn't like coming back home and dealing with PTSD and anxiety and depression. This was something totally new for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was keeping me down. And for me, in the back of my head, I'm like, I was struggling. I was struggling in every area of my life, struggling in my relationships, struggling in just who I was as a person, as a man. And so I had to redefine my life. And that is where I decided, it came to a point in my life where I said, I'm going to write down the kind of person that I want to be, the man that I
was wondering that, right? Like what you did to actually redefine. So you started with writing down, this is who I want to be. This is the kind of person I am.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then now here's where the traveling comes in. Then I started traveling because there was two things I had always wanted to do. I wanted to travel and I wanted to finish my college degree. It wasn't like something I felt like my college degree was going to be kind of what I needed for success, but it was a goal that I had for a very long time. So in fact, during the first initial years after my deployment and not wanting to be around a lot of people, I isolated myself. I started taking online classes. And one of the first classes I took was a health and wellness class. And it was this class that just opened up my world to health and wellness, because oftentimes men focus more on their strength and their fitness. But there's so much more to health than just strength training. And don't get me wrong, I'm very much into strength training. I love strength training myself, but there's just so much more to it.
Well, right. And I want to just go back for a moment to say that as you wrote down what kind of person you wanted to be or what was most important to you, it sounds like two of your most important things were your degree and travel.
Yes.
And just, for men listening, right, it's going to be different. It's going to be
absolutely
unique to who you are. And I just wanted to make that part clear.
Yeah, absolutely. So long story short, I ended up eventually transferring over to a university, offline university, Oregon State University, in fact, and that's where I finished my bachelor's degree in health promotion and health behavior. And then I actually continued on for my master's degree in public health.
Mm.
And then I ended up going into the public health profession. And this is where a light bulb moment went off for me as far as like men's health and coaching men, where through my struggles, my mental well-being struggles, and even during my undergraduate and graduate degree, and then going into the public health field, I saw that there was this huge lack of men's health initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
There was like nothing really other than your, like I mentioned before, your strength training, you're building muscles for men, but there was just so much more that. And so what I did is I ended up conducting a men's health workshop.
Hmm.
And that was part of my job. I was a health educator. And I conducted this men's health workshop during Men's Health Month,
Mm-hmm.
which is June, which happens in June. And the feedback I got from the men were just overwhelming in praise. And they just wish they had heard this information long ago.
What was the information that you shared with them or that you were gathering from them?
Really just this, what I had really, that information outside of there's health, there's more to health than just strength training.
Mm-hmm.
There's your environment and how your environment impacts your health. And that includes where you live and the things that you expose yourself to. There's also your social health, your friendships, those other people who you connect with, those so your environment, your social health, your environment, your social. Then there's also your behavior and those lifestyle choices and then also chronic diseases, where majority of the chronic diseases that we're seeing people suffer from today, especially men, they're all preventable.
Mm.
And it's only as a result of these lifestyle choices that we make, that just because somebody has a predisposition or the genetic to develop diabetes or obesity, these things are all preventable.
Wow.
And oftentimes people think, well, my family has it, someone in my family has it, I'm going to get it. And that's not true. There are so many things that we could do about these preventable chronic diseases. And so that's what I was sharing with these men. And they're like just overwhelmed in praise. And that's where just a light bulb moment went off. I go, wait a second. Here's my life and my struggles and the things that I was struggling with. Here was this education, this solid education that I got out of health and wellness. And then I go into the public health field and I just see this huge lack of the story, of the narratives that men are told, that are given, there's so much more to it. And so for me, in helping men individually, where they begin to redefine their life, but I also make it to where there's this importance of brain health.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is where, kind of your self-help gurus, your authors, your speakers really miss the point, because when you're trying to change your life, when you're redefining your life, we don't talk about brain health. And that's the very thing that's going to help you to have real lasting change.
Mm. Wow. Interesting. I mean, right. Brain health is not a term that you hear. I mean, I don't hear very often.
Yes. No.
And can you define that, or what do you mean in a way by brain health, or how do you make your brain healthy?
Those are great questions. And the thing is, oftentimes when we think of health, what do we think about? We think about exercising and eating and doing these sorts of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we think of that as it benefits our bodies, just from our neck down. Yeah. But in truth, reality, everything that we eat and drink impacts our brain. Either it helps it or it doesn't.
Well, right. And I think about, there's psychological health and emotional health. Yes. And does brain health encompass all of that?
Absolutely. So when you're thinking of your mental health, there's oftentimes, and so the foods that we eat and the things that we drink and even smoke impact the functioning of our brain. Mm. So when we think about not only we eating for our body, we're also eating for our brain. Right. And the thing is, our brain is and we often don't even take in consideration our brain, because it's the very organ that is utilized to make the decisions that we make on a daily basis.
Right.
And it's the daily decisions that we make that ultimately create our life.
Right. Shape our lives and
Yeah,
what we do and who we're with and right. All of that, how we spend our
absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. So oftentimes with my clients where they are suffering from anxiety and mild depression, and when I get deeper into their life and deeper into what's going on, they're not sleeping well.
Yeah.
They're not eating well. They're not physically active. And once those things begin to change, their anxiety and their depression diminishes, and they're more energetic, they're more focused on what it is that they want. They're not distracted, they're focused.
Mm.
And they begin to redefine their life. They know exactly what it is they want. They eliminate the distractions, which helps in eliminating anxiety, and they begin to work towards that they desire the most.
Wow.
Whether that's being a more engaged father, whether that's being a more engaged husband, a supportive husband, whatever, like you mentioned, it's individual. For me, it was all about living my adventurous spirit. For
Mm-hmm.
me, that is what I wanted to do more than anything. And that's what I have been able to create for my life. But for many other men, they don't think adventure. They're like, I just want to stay home. You know?
Right. I want to be engaged in my life as it is.
Yes.
I want life to
Yeah.
be, I don't want to be half-assed here or disconnected, like you said, from my partner, from my children, or I want to
Yes.
do work that I love so I actually can spend my days feeling inspired again,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And oftentimes some of this anxiety and depression comes from that feeling of being trapped,
Yeah.
where they don't have those options and those decisions.
Well, okay. Can you go, let's go there for a minute, because I think a feeling of being trapped, I mean, there are, of course, ways that we can be trapped or stuck financially or situationally, right? Like it doesn't seem as easy for me to pick up and leave having a 6-year-old as it would for you, just to be on your own. But I also think there's a kind of a mental attitude of trapped, and to redefine your life or to see beyond the box or the conventions that are painted for us, goes a long way. So I'm curious how you work with men who feel trapped.
Yes. And this is a great time because I was working with a client who he's actually a veteran, and he thought that he ended up buying this property, and it was I've been to it. It's a beautiful property. And the last time for him, he felt like this was going to be where this was something very big for him. He loved it. It was right by a river. He could go fishing, go swimming, do all these different things. And it had been a while since I had had finished working with him. And then he contacted me and began to explain this new situation to me where he felt trapped. And what happened was his mother-in-law moved in with him.
Oh, well, that could have you feel trapped. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for him, this created a lot of anxiety. This created, he's basically losing his house now, right? Because now he has to do this. And this is a situation that a lot of couples find themselves.
Right.
And so this can now create this kind of anxiety for him, and create, like, he had plans and he has goals. Now these things are stopping him. And so one of the things that I shared with him, and let me back up, he does want to live out his adventurous spirit. He's like, man, I want to be able to do these things. And really what it came down to is having that heart-to-heart conversation with his wife, where it's not that he doesn't love his wife. It's not that he doesn't want to care for his mother-in-law. It's not that he doesn't want to be there, but he had to take he had to make that effort to have that one-on-one conversation with his wife, to let her know exactly what was going on, and to involve her in what he desired to do. And that was to go on some, if I remember correctly, like a week-long adventure, or to go hiking. And it's like, look, go, have this heart-to-heart conversation with your wife and let her know how important it is to you. And it's not about saying, hey, I'm going to go and do this, and this is when I'm going. It's about, hey, this is something that's important for me.
How do we
Can
work
we,
this out
yeah,
together?
exactly. How
Yeah.
can we, yes, it's not that I don't want to be here for you. It's not that I want to leave you here with your mother, but this is something that's really important for me. And this is actually a very good point, because oftentimes men just push their needs to the side, and then they end
Mhm.
up getting frustrated and annoyed and just disengaged.
Right. Disengage. Yeah. And that's, as a woman, I can say that's one of the worst things for I'll just speak for myself to feel
Mm-hmm.
is when a man or person, right, is just disengaged, disconnected, not bringing his heart anymore to me. And I just love that, I wasn't sure where you were going with it, but
Mm-hmm.
the answer isn't always obvious, right? The answer isn't necessarily, God, I've got to get this mother-in-law out of my house.
Mm-hmm.
For him, maybe it was, oh, I actually need to leave more. Or maybe for someone else, it would have been, let's move the mother-in-law down the road or
Mm-hmm.
something. But just that
Mm-hmm.
you can't know until you actually have that conversation. And I love
Mm-hmm.
um, if I wasn't, if I didn't feel trapped, or what would it look like to not feel trapped? And then how do I
Mm-hmm.
involve the other people in my life in
Yes.
this decision?
Yes, because in all reality, the thing is yes, hopefully she is a supportive and understanding person, and kind of be like, yes, it's not that you want to leave, it's
Mhm.
like this is really something. And the important thing, and you bring this up too, where is that when a man is fulfilled, when he is doing something that he is passionate about, that he loves, he's going to be that much better of a husband, of a
Yes.
father, of a man, because he's not denying that adventurous side of him, or denying that piece that's him. You're not going to
Yes.
change. You're not going to change that from him. Like whoever I end up with, hopefully, this is who I am.
Yes.
This
Well,
is
and
not
this
going to
is
change.
great. I think this is where your work and my work overlap too, because I often work with, men to figure out, okay, how do I have this conversation that's not a fuck
Hmm.
you? It's not
Yes.
a I'm leaving if this doesn't happen, right? I mean, there are going to be times when people will separate or leave, but
Hmm.
first, how do we actually check in and say, hey, this is what I'm wanting. This is what's important to me. And I also want to know what's important to you. And let's have this
Absolutely.
conversation so we can both be
Absolutely.
our most alive and fulfilled selves. And hopefully we could stay together and do this, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you bring up a good point, and I think and the thing is, it's the same for both people involved in the relationship, right?
Yep.
Especially for husbands and wanting their wives to go out and whatever's going to rejuvenate her, because I guarantee you, when she's rejuvenated or when he's rejuvenated, everything else is going to be is just
Yeah.
going to be another level. Whether it's that sexual part of them, whether it's just that togetherness of them, it's going to be incredible. Oftentimes, they're just reluctant to involve that other person, there's times where there isn't the support, and you kind of have to work with it, and that's just part
Yep.
of being in a relationship. But when that person is fulfilled, and I've seen it time and again, where a man is now, hey, he goes on a motorcycle camp for a week, right?
Mhm.
That was his adventure. Or go for
Mhm.
hiking for a week. He comes back, and it's like he's engaged, and the truth of the matter is, I think when we talk about kids need to see their parents happy. They
Yeah.
need to see them accomplishing their goals. And it's not like because dad's going to be gone for a week that he's, not being supportive, or
Mhm.
being, taking care of his responsibilities. That's not what this is all about. It's just about taking care of that person inside, because they're going to then be a much better, or an engaged husband,
Yes.
father, and man.
Yes. Well, thank you. I mean, this is amazing. I feel really excited. I think in part because, you're a living example, right, of someone who can go from the depth of
Mm,
the painful experiences of anxiety, of depression, and actually find your way into what is most fulfilling for you. What is a reason worth living. And like we said, for every man, it's different,
absolutely.
um, but that living without that to me doesn't feel like an option in my life anymore. And for you
Hmm.
clearly isn't an option anymore either. So I love I love supporting men with this. And, we could go on for a long time, but I'm thinking for now, right? If
Yes.
there was something you were to leave a man with who's sitting here thinking, oh yeah, I am struggling, or life doesn't feel as exciting anymore, or I just don't have it anymore, right? What would you say to him?
Yeah, that's
Or
a great
even,
question.
actually, sorry, I just want to add, even a man who is doing really well and things are going well, but also has that sense of, oh, there's something more. There's something else.
One thing I share is, and I know, and for some reason, this is difficult for men, but I often tell them, what is it that you want? And to be as specific as possible. Whether somebody is right now listening to this, and I'm just going to picture somebody who's driving a delivery truck like I did at one time, right? And he just knows, hey, this isn't for me. It's all about creating or writing down what it is that you want, and begin to create the plan on how to make it, whether that's decreasing your debt, whether that's, planning with somebody or whatever. But I think more than anything, and I know maybe perhaps this is why, at least for myself and perhaps yourself, is getting a coach. Because once you have that accountability, once you have that that other viewpoint of showing men how you can do this.
Yeah.
And here are those steps.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we try to do it on our own. As men, we want to do it on our own, right?
Yes.
We want to claim that success. It's like, I wrote that book and I'm the only one who did it. And it's like, but if you realize anyone who's successful doesn't do it on their own. There are editors, there are people there's so many different jobs in a sense. It's like, I don't do everything on my own. I'm successful, but I delegate other things to people, right? Yeah. And so I'm able to have the lifestyle I have because I do delegate. But going back to your question, is that first it takes the belief also, and it can be a struggle, but it's really defining. Once you know what it is that you want, things begin to happen. Yeah. Once you know exactly what it is you want, things begin to happen. And the thing is too, is you don't have to know how it's going to happen. You don't have
to know the how.
Yeah.
That's the what that comes first. And this isn't this isn't an airy fairy, oh, it's just going to happen. But what you're saying is, right, start to make a plan, start to take one step and see who you meet along the way and who supports you, and which thing leads you to something else, right?
Absolutely. It's just one thing. And no matter where you're at, whether you're wanting more success in your life or you already have success in your life, there are different things. Once you know what it is you want, and there are people that can, absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And where can men find more of you?
Yes, men can find me at strongmencoaching.com. That's strong, MEN coaching.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today and for being a living example, like I said, of a man who has taken the intensity and the grit of life and actually, turned your life into something that is exciting and adventurous and really deeply meaningful for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope it gives you a sense of what's possible and how good your life can be. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe to Man Alive and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to ShanaJamesCoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, videos, and raw footage I only share there. These are some of the most interesting parts of these expert conversations. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power to accelerate your career and solidify your confidence with women, because the two are related, and I know you don't have to settle for one or the other. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.